Ladies and gentlemen, in just a moment, we're going to begin the funeral services of Mr. David P. Silver. We welcome those of you who are joining us online. Rabbi Deborah Newman Kamen from Am Yisrael will be officiating. We ask that everyone here take a brief moment to be sure that your cell phones have been turned off. And as the family enters the chapel, we'll ask everyone to rise, stand in place, and then we'll be seated as one community. I invite everyone to please rise as Sharon and her family enter the chapel. Please be seated. Once again, please be sure your phones are off. Rabbi Deborah Newman Kamen will be officiating.
We turn to the words of our tradition, to Psalm 23. Mizmor LeDavid, Adonai roi exar, Benot desha yarbitzeni al me menuchot yanachaleni. Nafshi shovev yancheni b'maglei tzedek l'man shemo. Gam ki alech b'geit zel mavet, lo ira ra ki ata imadi. Shivtecha u'mishantecha chemai yanachamuni, ta'aroch livnei shulchan neged sorai. Deshanta v'shemen roshi kosi ravaya. Aktov v'chesed yardafuni kol yamei chayai. B'shafti b'veit Adonai lo'orach yamim. God is my shepherd, I shall not want. God has me lie down in green pastures, leads me beside the still waters, guides me in paths of righteousness, and revives my soul for the sake of glory. Though I walk in the valley of the shadow of death, I fear no harm, for you are with me. Your staff and your rod do comfort me. You set a table in sight of my enemies. You anoint my head with oil, and my cup overflows. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall abide in the house of God forever. Adonai ma'on hayita lanu v'dor v'dor, v'terem herimu ladu v'techolel eretz v'tevel, u'me'olam ad olam ata el. O God, you have been our refuge from generation to generation. Before the mountains were born, before the earth was fashioned, from eternity to eternity, you are everlastingly God. Yet, humans, you crumble to death, to dust. You say, return, O mortals, 1,000 years are in your sight as a passing day, an hour of night. You sweep us away and we sleep. Like grass, we flourish for a day. In the morning, we sprout afresh, and by nightfall fade and wither. Match days of sorrow with days of joy, equal to the years we have suffered. Then your servants will see your power, and your children will know your glory. We've gathered today in loving tribute to David. David was born in Chicago an only child. But as a child, I'm told, he was a movie star. Actually, his dog was the movie star. Starred in educational films for a company called Coronet, but David was there to make sure the dog did what the dog was supposed to do. David was a man of many interests, and these interests started at a young age. He was in the astronomy club in high school. He was a photographer who always had a camera. He was a ham radio operator. And I'm going to get this right, he attended the Ohio State University and studied to be a welding engineer. And it was at the Ohio State University. I'm not talking about it anymore. It was there that he met his beloved and devoted wife, Sharon. He was in a fraternity and had to come back to campus early. She was a freshman and needed to be on campus early. And fortunately, as she was walking in her group and he was walking in his group, people knew each other in each group. And so their first date was brunch at Hillel. Their second unofficial date was dinner at Hillel. Sharon's parents were coming to meet her at school that weekend to bring her stuff. And so he was able to meet her entire immediate family at Hillel for brunch the next morning. Tussled with her younger brothers. David was excited to be part of an extended large family. And her parents, I guess, gave the stamp of approval, though double-checked on the way to the chuppah. A different Silver, Dick Silver, invited Sharon the next week to Shabbat dinner at Hillel, not as a date, but as friends. And while Sharon went to Hillel that night with Dick Silver, she left with David Silver. He offered to escort her group on a tour of the campus as new freshmen, and I learned a new phrase yesterday. I hope I get this right. Bird dogging, which means that you kind of horn in on somebody else's date, which is what David did to make sure that he and Sharon started dating. David loved classical music and exposed Sharon to that love, as well as love of Chinese food, which eventually Sharon actually took up as well. I asked Sharon how they became engaged, and she said, well, I'll tell you, he took me to a picnic of other students. We'd been dating for a while at that point. Everybody there was already either engaged or married, and so asked Sharon during the picnic, so, new, when are you going to get engaged? New, when are you going to get engaged? On the way to the car, David pulled out the box with the engagement ring. Sharon was a little annoyed. You can ask her later what she said to him, that he waited till after the picnic. But since they had already reserved the temple, it really, things were moving forward with the ring or without the ring. David graduated school on a Friday morning, and they were married that weekend on Sunday evening. Sharon and David moved to Philadelphia and later to New Jersey, where he became the Philadelphia job. He was doing research and development, which was really not the right fit for him. He moved to New Jersey, where he was doing sales and became a top salesman in the region. But when their oldest, Deanna, was born, it was time to move to Chicago. David and Sharon created a special family life for their children. They ate dinner as a family every night. Whatever time it was, they would wait for Dad, even if it meant that actually the 3 children, had to eat a little bit early or have a snack. When Dad got home, Everybody sat at the table together. Dad was an ally, they told me, even in the case of rogue hamsters. But they knew, Deanna, Stephen, and Alex, that Dad was always there for them, that Dad stood by them. If they had something that they were interested in, David supported their interests. David also wanted to expose them to other things that he thought that they might be interested in. Alex remembers hot dogs every Saturday until Stephen became, after the heart attack, the person that had to make sure that that type of food was no longer part of his diet. David was also a loving uncle. He loved marrying into a big extended family as an only child. Sharon's mother, I don't know if she quipped or if she was serious, that of all her children, he was her favorite. And he loved being an uncle. And I'm told he was called Uncle Lloyd. I didn't get that full story, so again, now you have something to ask at the Shiva. David could fix anything. I think it was Becky that said, I thought a plumber was a mythic profession. I had heard about it, but never seen it in my life, because Pop could fix anything, and he did. He was very good with tools, and he taught Mark how to fix things as well. He loved his lawn and spent a lot of time grooming it. In 1986, he suffered a heart attack, and that was a defining moment in his life. The family's effort to try to get him to eat healthy wasn't always easy, but they held up the lure of future grandchildren as somewhat of a temptation. And so I think the family expressed this to me, that every day after that was really a bonus, and that he lived, and every year, Sharon said if he would make it to 70, Dayenu, and of course he made it to 82. He also loved the opera, but probably nothing he loved more, even more than a father, even more than a husband, even more than an uncle, was when David and Sharon began to have grandchildren. Deanna asked him, was it worth every grilled chicken and broiled fish that you had to eat to get to this day? He had a unique relationship with all of his children, but his grandchildren would say to him, which one of us is the favorite? And he would say to them, the one that's closest to my heart, which began the tradition of each grandchild crawling into his lap to try to get as close to his heart as they possibly could. And which one could touch his heart to be as close to him. Obviously, the incentive was to be the favorite, but the image of all of these grandchildren crawling as close to snuggling to him as possible to be as close to his heart. David and Sharon were lifelong members of BJBE congregation in Glenview, and then later in Deerfield. And while Sharon was really the driving force of Judaism in their family, it was David that said, let's build a sukkah. Long before it became common for people to build a sukkah, because David was handy, he could do those things, but it was important to him not just to build a sukkah for his family, but to build a sukkah together with extended family and friends to bring them into the process of building the sukkah. And for many people all over the Chicago area, their Jewish memories were memories at David and Sharon's house. The grandchildren remember the many, many sleepovers, that David was never in the pictures because he was always the one taking the pictures, that he would show them slideshows in the basement of their many travels that he did with Sharon, with the extended family, and then the special grandchildren trips that they did with each grandchild. His grandchildren called him Pop Pop, and he went to every event. He and Sharon attended every event that they possibly could. The 5 grandchildren spent a lot of time at David and Sharon's house. They referred to themselves as the Cincos because they were the 5. And they loved being at David and Sharon's house so much that they never wanted to leave. And when their parents would come to pick them up, they would hide, they would devise all kinds of methods to avoid getting taken home. They said, we just loved to be there so much that they would run and hide in the basement, and the parents would turn off the lights to kind of scare them to come upstairs. And so they learned not to be scared of the dark at their grandparents, so they could hide out and stay there longer. David prided himself on being the quintessential Chicagoan. At 10 years old, the grandchildren learned no more ketchup on hot dogs. As a child, that was okay, but Chicagoans do not eat their hot dogs with ketchup. He loved home run pizza. He was a Cubs fan. And that was another thing that he transmitted to his family members. He also had a love of history, particularly the Civil War, where he traveled all over to the Civil War battlefields, sometimes schlepping family members along who were less than thrilled to be there. He was into computers before anybody else was into computers. He was interested in local government. He was a commissioner in the Glenview Village Board. He was on the Historical Preservation Society. At BJBE, he was the facilities chair. He had an independent sense of adventure. He made all of his children learn how to read maps and be able to navigate. I have to mention, I'm told he slept with his eyes open and could sleep anywhere, and was known to take a sick day on Millard Fillmore's birthday. Sharon said to me yesterday that they would have been married for 60 years this June, that David lived a good life and created a wonderful family. Sharon, if you know her history, child survivor of the Holocaust. David, an only child. And for the two of them, they wanted to create a family, a close-knit family, a loving family, and to create something that neither of them had in their early childhood years. And she said to me, we worked very hard to create the family of our dreams. Everyone wants it, but not everyone gets it, and we had it. And so looking out at this family of David and Sharon's dreams, of knowing that the last years of David's life were difficult, and those memories sometimes are what stays with us in the immediate aftermath of a loss. It's my hope, as we say, Adonai Natan v'Adonai Lakach, that God gives and God takes away, that one of the things that God will give you is the precious memories of all of the good years, of all of the years of love, and knowing that the relationship that your family has is because of what David and Sharon gave to all of you. I ask you now to please rise for the El Malei Rachamim. And in it, we ask that David's memory be bound up through the life of the living. El Malei Rachamim, Shochein B'Meromim, Hamitzei menucha nechona tachat kanfei hashechina b'ma'alot kiddushim o taharim k'zoher rekia mizhirim et nishmat David Halevi ben Yisrael v'chada shalach la'olamo. Began Eden dehe menuchato ana ba'al harachamim hesiretu b'seter kenafech la'olamim utzur b'tzur chaim et nishmato Adonai hu nachlato v'yanuch b'shalom mishkavo v'nomar amen. O God, exalted and full of compassion, grant perfect peace in your sheltering presence among the holy and pure to the soul of David Silver, who is gone to his eternal home. God of mercy, we beseech you, remember all the worthy and righteous deeds that he performed in the land of the living. May his soul be bound up in the bond of life. God is his portion. May he rest in peace. And let us all say, Amen.
Ladies and gentlemen, the interment service will continue at Rose Hill Cemetery on Ravenswood in Chicago. The family will be having Shiva at Congregation B'nai Jehoshua Beth Elohim from Sunday from 2 p.m. to 7 p.m., then at the residence of Stephen and Elaine Silver, 707 Sapling Lane in Deerfield, Monday from 6 p.m. to 8:30 p.m. Please note that no food or beverages will be served or accepted, and masks are required. Memorial contributions in David's memory to Hadassah would be appreciated. That information is on the service folder. And for those of you who are joining us via live stream, information about Shiva and donations can all be found on the funeral home's website. For those of you who will be driving in the funeral procession to the cemetery, the procession will be forming in our parking lot. Please obtain an orange safety funeral sticker to place on the right-hand side of your windshield. Have your bright lights and hazard lights on at all times. For additional measures of safety, we will be providing a car in the back of the procession to hopefully keep other cars from entering the procession. And for your own personal safety, I strongly recommend using your horn liberally as you're going through the intersections. Please do not speak or text on your cellular phone while driving to a cemetery. The following people have been asked to serve as pallbearers for David. They are Jay Jacobson, Ari Jacobson, Rebecca Jacobson, Robin Silver, Melanie Silver, Howard Pitluck, Sheldon Pitluck, Bob Ecker, Kenny Ecker, and Danny Ecker. This time I invite everyone to please rise and stand in place as we escort the casket of David P. Silver, along with the pallbearers and Rabbi Deborah Newman Kamen from the chapel. Excuse me, then you may return to your cars. Ladies and gentlemen, you may return to your cars.